Austin passed its budget earlier this month, and it's going to cost the average taxpayer about $172 more per year. Are they going to see better services for that money?
Yeah, and you have to take a couple of things into consideration on that. First of all, the city is capped, and we followed the cap, so that you see about a 3.5% increase. When you think about what's gone on in the past couple of years in terms of inflation, when you think about what has happened in terms of supply chain and the increased costs, that is a lot less than what just the average inflation has been over the past couple of years. In addition to that, it was very targeted in a lot of ways. It was, in fact, we talked about it as a back to basics budget, a budget where we would see a better response on what we needed to do with our population that's living homeless, what we ought to be doing with more affordable housing and how we bring about affordability. So it has the services that people want, and we were very specific in how we wanted to go about doing that.
And diving into those services a little bit, 87 million earmarked for affordable housing, 80 million to help with the homelessness challenge. Does the promise of improvements in those areas come with the money?
Well, you've already seen some of it. For example, we're in a situation right now where we had promised that what we would do is by September we would have more emergency shelter beds, so that we'd be in a better position to enforce the camping ban and avoid the situation of where you close a camp here, you tell people you can't camp here, but because there's no place for them to go, they end up camping over there. And so you just move around. We've actually opened the marshaling yard early as a result of how we're focusing on that. So yes, we're having the kind of specific response that I believe we ought to be having to serve the citizens.
Are there people already in the marshaling yard
yes,
living there?
Yeah, there are. I said that awfully quick. It opened this week, and people were moving in beginning this week. I've not yet been out there. We're scheduling to get me out the first part of next week.
Okay. So let's talk about the heat. We have that as an ongoing problem, and
I'm not responsible for that.
I'm not blaming you for it.
Yeah, all right.
But earlier, the county and the city issued this disaster declaration for the heat and for the wildfires. What additional powers does that give you as mayor?
Well, a couple of things. One is it sets us up where I don't have to go back to the council. The mayor is given certain powers, including powers related to evacuation, things of that nature, under the Texas statute. But that power is also limited. First of all, your disaster declaration by the mayor lasts only 7 days unless it's ratified by the Austin City Council. This week, the council ratified that unanimously, so that disaster declaration will last for another 120 days. What that does, as one of the key parts, is it allows faster reaction. You don't have to take things back to the council and set a council meeting, have it posted, do that. The mayor is in a position to make specific decisions at the time. It also puts us in a good place if we have a disaster that costs money to be able to get a more rapid response from the state and the federal government.
Do you worry that some might see skipping out on asking the council for permission to do certain things as a bit of an overreach?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I can't imagine that somebody would worry about doing that under the circumstances when what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep people safe.
Okay.
That only happens in the media when the media is looking for a way to create a controversy.
Just asking the question.
Whether you're in the media.
What is this city's role when it comes to reducing climate change and when it comes to preventing Austin from becoming a hotter and hotter city?
Well, I think we have a significant role, and we need to live up to our role. There's a couple of things about that. One is that we have a plan. It's called the Equitable Climate Plan, and it has things that we need to be doing with regard to that. We have, for example, we have a department related to resiliency and how we want to do things in a way that will mitigate carbon footprint and help. One of the examples, of course, is with Austin Energy. We are very careful about our generation, and so where we get our generation, we do have coal involved in that. We have gas, we have nuclear, but the biggest bulk of our generation capacity is in wind and solar. Again, playing a role the way we ought to. I think you're going to see us have to play a bigger role. I think this summer convinces a lot of people that may have been on the fence about what role we ought to take. And what I anticipate you'll see going forward will be things that are in that climate plan related to, for example, land purchases and setting aside land so that you reduce the carbon footprint. And of course, the way you go about building, as we try to build more affordable housing and greater density, you can do that in a way that also mitigates.
Earlier this week, one of the big topics was the police chief's announcement, Joe Chacon, that he was going to be retiring. Do you worry that creates further instability in that department that really needs officers?
Well, anytime you lose a leader like that, particularly a leader that's been a stable leader, you worry about those kinds of things. I feel very comfortable in Robin Henderson taking the role that she's taking. She's been there a long time. She's been working side by side with the chief as the chief of staff. So I believe we've mitigated any instability as a result of that. She also understands while we're doing this, and she's in that interim position, the kinds of things we need to do to otherwise stabilize the department and to get more and more people into an officer role.
And what will you be looking for with whoever becomes the next police chief?
Well, first of all, the way that works is that the hiring of the chief is done by the city manager, and it has to be approved by the council. But what I'm looking for in the chief is someone that has the ability to communicate both with the public and with the rank and file officers that are in the police department. Is someone that is able to send a message to those that we're trying to recruit and those we're trying to retain about how they're valued. In addition to that, I want someone that recognizes Austin's values about how we want policing to occur. It is not the zero-sum game that it feels like it's been over the last couple of years, where you have to be anti-police or pro-police. You can be for a just system of policing and be very favorable and in support of our police officers.
Do you feel like now is a good time for a change at the top of the police department?
Well, yes and no. We're at a pivotal point in time, so changing leadership and getting new leadership that might be able to help us as we take next steps, well, that's a good time for that. At a time when you're trying to build that police department and you have issues in terms of trying to recruit, like happens across the country. This is not just an Austin problem. Well, it might be nice to continue the stability of having a leader. So I can argue it both ways, like most things, when you're trying to make decisions going forward.
Okay. Mayor Watson, you've been gracious with your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.